Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I once again have a guest. I'm little miss popularity these days with guests. My guest once again, Jared Henderson. Say hello to my imaginary BookTube friends. Jared has a YouTube channel,
Hello, everyone on BookTube.
a whomping popularity of subscribers, and we have a whole bunch of topics. I knew right away when we had our
Yeah.
last conversation. I'll try to remember to link the last conversation to this one. But I knew right away that I wanted to have more conversations. And I asked, what should we talk about? And you came up with a whole bunch of ideas. But one of them
I
is pretty close to what
okay.
you do on your channel. It's pretty close to your MO.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah. I want to talk about book lists with you, Steve, which is probably 80% of my content are book lists.
yeah.
But I'm having a bit of soul searching about book lists and some frustrations about book lists. And so you as BookTube extraordinaire, maybe you can shine some wisdom on this.
Well, it's not just BookTube extraordinaire. For 30 years before there was an internet, I was making book lists. I've done a year-end best
Um,
and worst books of the year for a long, long
yeah.
time. And I've done a
Yeah.
ton of such. Long before that, friends of mine would say,
Mhm.
can you give me a list of the science fiction novels I should read before I die? Or the
Yeah.
worst
Yeah.
history that I should read before I die, something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
They're very popular for that. Well, you must know that,
Mhm.
right? Your
Yeah.
book lists get 40,000 views, right?
Yeah, I would actually consider a book list that gets 40,000 views for me is one of the poorer ones. My book lists do better than almost anything else. When I try to do something more interesting, I mean, some of the journaling stuff probably does the best, but I have a science fiction list that recently cracked 100,000 views. My fantasy list that I put out recently is probably going to do fairly well.
But why would you
Yeah,
say that?
people like them. People like them.
Why would you
Well,
say that?
I think that I think that they are very accessible. You don't have to do any work as a listener or a viewer or a reader to enjoy a book list. So there is that. I also think though that people like book lists increasingly. This is the problem actually. They want to see if their tastes are validated. So they want to see if you agree with them,
They like
and
seeing
this
your
can also
favorite.
lead to exactly my favorites on that list, and then they really dislike it if their favorite doesn't make the list.
That was the very first question I was going to ask. Do you get negative responses? People saying, what kind of a Visigoth are you that you don't have X, Y, or Z on the list?
Let me read you a comment that I just received today. I won't quote the person, but it goes, this is for my fantasy book list. This is the worst top 10 ever, LOL. I'm sorry, but where is Abercrombie, GOT, Baker, etc.? So, I was recently told on my science fiction list that I read science fiction like a boomer because I don't read enough modern science fiction, which is not true. I actually read a lot of modern science fiction. It just didn't make my list because I think a lot of it's bad. Some of it's very good, but still. And then the person went on to recommend books that they said were not reviewed to death on BookTube, and they were Hugo and Nebula winners. Like almost all of them.
So, but that original comment was taking you to task for ignoring the riches of Grimdark. It sounds like.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
How
Which
unforgivable of you.
exactly? I find that I think it happens a lot if there is a subgenre or a type of reader in the genre who considers themselves to be like the serious fans, and you don't do enough nods to this. For science fiction, my science fiction did not include Heinlein or Dick or Asimov. And I've just been taken to task over and over. How could I take you seriously if you don't have any of those three?
Now,
Actually, the top 10 should only be those three.
do you ever? Occasionally over the decades, I have detected. It's going to sound weird, but almost a compliment in the level of outrage in that.
Yeah, I do actually enjoy that a little bit. And it's almost like they're saying, well, there's two parts of it. One of them is they might be saying, you seem like the kind of guy that should know better. So we thought highly of you. um, but then there's a second type, which is, I like this thing, and why doesn't everybody? Why doesn't everyone agree?
But then, okay, if these things are racking up triple-digit view counts and whatnot, then what is causing
Yeah.
Jared's crisis of conscience? What is causing these numbers?
Well, my worry is that because they're low effort content, I am not drawing in people who want to hear what I have to say. Well, what I've realized is it's the list that matters to people. It's not, so it's almost an ego thing, I think. Maybe they don't want to hear my thoughts about it. They just like looking at top 10 lists, or they like looking at philosophy lists for beginners or something like this.
So never
And
any. I mean, you must get people who are grateful that you are challenging their assumptions about a list. I mean, famously, your
there are some people, yeah,
list right there in the thumbnail says that Lord of the Rings is not number one.
yes.
Surely there are some people that tune into that in order to say, all right, hit me with your best. Tell me what on earth you could possibly, what case you could make.
Yes, yes. And there are some people there who respond very well, like you said, and I really appreciate them. I even, in my fantasy list, I insulted a few books before I went on the list. I just said that there were a few beloved series that I think are very bad. The Witcher and the Kingkiller Chronicles were two. Kingkiller Chronicles recently made an appearance on your list, or on your channel.
Yes,
and I had some,
and I got pushback for it because I simply said these were the two books of the Kingkiller Chronicles that Patrick Rothfuss wrote. And I got a million people writing to me saying, "You mean yet?"
Yeah.
If I meant that, I would have said that.
Yes, yeah.
They're all up in arms about the fact that there's a date now for the next book.
Yes. So I said I didn't like it. I think I've removed this from the internet, or it will be gone by the time you've seen this goes live, because I'll do it immediately after we get off the call. At one point, I had the most liked review on Amazon of the Kingkiller Chronicles, of the first book, where I gave it a 1 star, and I had like 700 likes on this. And back in the day, people could comment on your Amazon reviews. And it was just a long list of people being like, well, if you're so smart, why don't you write a book?
Yes.
But I had a few people who said Kingkiller Chronicles is my favorite book series, but I still liked your list. And I think, I thought it was interesting or something like this. And I actually, to them, I would comment back and thank them, because I thought that they were being very gracious.
Now, when you make a list like this, I mean, we'll get back to your crisis of conscience, but I'm curious to know the mechanics, because I've been doing this for so long myself. When you make a list like this, is there a sliding scale of what you do and don't do, or is it one scale? Like
what I typically
Kingkiller Chronicles, was that left off your list because it's poorly done, or because the main character is a douche canoe, or because perhaps the author is a douche canoe? Do all of those things figure in?
I typically don't think about the author, like there. I'm willing to put on authors that I think are despicable or something if they wrote a great book. I might note it. I don't talk about the authors very often on my channel. But I'm willing to do it.
List.
Yes, I mean, yeah. Well, here's a sad fact. Almost every philosopher is bad. So I leave off the authors. With The Name of the Wind in particular, I only read the first one. I did not read the second book, because that was one of the most frustrating reading experiences of my life. And I felt like I had been lied to by every friend who had recommended me that book, who had said that the prose was stunning and no one did it better. And I would pull out quotes from them and be like, what about this? This is that poetry you were talking about? And they were like, yeah, it's like poetry. And then I had to point out to them, well, some poetry is bad. Like, just because it's poetic doesn't mean that it's good. And I hated the main character. I just did not care, as I turned the page, what was going to happen next. I know some people have resonated with that series so much. I am glad people can enjoy books, right? But I can't understand how they could enjoy that one. For why they can enjoy that so much. I think like with the prose, or with some of the other things that they call so beautiful, they've just been underexposed to some of the stuff that's better. That's my best bet. Or they read it at the right time in their lives to think that it was really, really, really great. I see like a younger reader, like a younger booktuber, who's like, I started reading this when I was 13, or like when I was 12, and they're like, and it means so much. Like, cool, I get it. I have books like that I read when I was 12 that I understand. For instance, when people go back and read Harry Potter, and they understand that the dialogue is very clunky, and she has this tendency of always adding. She never says Harry said, Hermione said. It's always like Harry shouted, Hermione interjected. It's like every line of dialogue. Once you notice, it really sticks out. But as a kid, it was meant so much to me that probably nothing can sour my opinion on it. I did leave that off my list completely because I thought it was pure nostalgia for me. But I can understand it. If you hit that book at the right time in your life, maybe that's why you love it so much.
It might also
My
be
adult
intentional, right, on the part of the author. I mean, the main character in the Rothfuss books is the fulfillment of a 13-year-old's dream. It's what a 13-year-old boy would dream about being. So if you hit it at that age, it's gonna play right into that. It's not what an adult would dream of being. It's that.
Yeah.
I just wonder about how much of that is intentional. I've been burned.
Some people have told me that
I've been burned too many times by saying, "Well, this is so infantile that you must have done this intentionally." And then I go to a convention and meet the author, and I realize all of a sudden, no, this is you were writing what you know. You're doing exactly what the writing workshops say. So now I feel hesitant to say that anymore.
Exactly. I've heard that about Name of the Wind. I don't speculate about it, but I would just say, not for me. Just isn't for me.
So what about then the crisis of conscience? Is it that you don't want to be serving up low content, easy, self-affirming stuff? And if so, wither philosophy. How can you possibly? What are you going to do? Turn to just being a gaming streamer? That's all philosophy.
No gaming streams here. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a thought that, one of the problems might be that my channel grew really quickly, really quickly. I have not been on YouTube for a year.
Yeah, your channel,
and
as the phrase goes, it exploded.
Yeah, and on the one hand, this is tremendous. I am now making not enough money to quit my job, but enough money that has changed my family's prospects in a lot of ways, where we can save more money than we expected. We can move out of this small 2-bedroom we bought when it was just the two of us in Austin, and we can buy a bigger house in like a year or two, right? It's sort of thing. So in that way, it is a life-changing experience. But I've gotten there because I realized what was doing well, and I kept doing some of it. And I realized some of it was like, make a book list and make a philosophy for beginners list, make a science fiction list, something like this. I'm about to release my 3rd philosophical science fiction list. Now, I think I like that topic. I like blending the two together, but I've made 3 of them in 6 months, right? And that's actually the conventional wisdom. If you talk to YouTubers who do well, they tell you when you have a video do well, make it again with a twist and just do it a few more times until the views die off. That's how people make a career out of this. And the question is that how I want to make a career? Right.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's 1-to-1, isn't it? That you go straight from the one to the other. I'm going to pass over the horrifying prospect of me just making one video after another, calling people fake readers. I'm not going to even think about that. You're a braver man than I am.
I had never watched your older videos. I don't remember when I stumbled on your channel, but I just noticed you would post a lot every day, and I started listening to your like mail stuff as I would like do the dishes or something.
Oh yeah.
And then I finally watched
time. I don't know why.
And then I finally watched your old video like last week on BookTube, the one there that's the popular one. And I was like, oh, that's what hold on a second. Hey Mongya, your phone is calling me. But oh, okay. Sorry. My wife walked in and then my phone was ringing from her, and she had accidentally called me.
Boy, that's next level nagging.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought maybe she'd left her phone somewhere, and someone.
There are whole generations of Irish mothers who are just yearning from the afterlife. Oh, if only we'd had that.
If only. Yeah. Yeah, I watched that video, and I was like, oh, that's what Steve. That's how Steve blew up a little bit, or that's how he got his big views. Was drama tubing.
But it's drama tubing, exactly. But when we're talking about your channel, I mean, we can get back to our other subjects.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about your channel, you've just outlined when this stops being a conversational subject and starts being something you have to sit down at the kitchen table and take seriously, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not. On your channel, it's going to sound very strange for me to say this, considering a lot of your subject matter, but you're not actually prostituting yourself on your channel. You actually believe the things you're saying.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If that weren't true, then the money coming in it wouldn't make a difference. The kitchen table conversation would still be very easy. It would be
Hmm.
no.
Yeah.
It'd be just a quick no. But since
Yeah.
that is true, that conversation changes everything. And suddenly
Yeah.
you are dealing with, well, I guess what I'm saying is you're dealing with a different kind of YouTube than I'll ever deal with.
Yeah.
That's got to introduce all sorts of new variables into
Hmm.
the equation as to I mean, there becomes a certain point when you look at that at the kitchen table like that where you wonder, can I do anything different?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to mess with this if things are now depending on it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I think that's probably led me since our last conversation to really think more seriously about trying to write a book, or to that where I have that where I'm not making top 10 list in a book or something like this. I'll try my best not even to have a bulleted list or in the book anywhere, and to just like write a good book. And that's something I can feel good about. And then maybe kind of distinguish between the weekly output that sort of helps pay the bills that people enjoy, that I don't hate doing, but I'd like to be doing something else as well. As long as I'm not like violating my conscience or some of my ethos, and then also can do something that's a little more like pushing myself a bit more.
I always have to
Maybe that
wonder when
is.
the word ethos is going to crop up with you men with beards. You're never going to get through a conversation without it. I always know
Yeah.
that. The McDonald's
Yes.
drive-through. I'll take the 12-piece McNugget and a Slurpee, and the ethos of this will.
Yeah.
There's no way to avoid it.
Yes. Yes.
But then again, Lady Wisdom was on your proposed list of subjects, wasn't she?
Oh, yes, it was. It was trying to convert you to liking philosophy, which I think might have to be its own conversation. We'd have to start from scratch.
Yes,
You know.
indeed. And one of us will
Yeah.
stay there.
Yes. Yeah.
Because some of the people who I have reduced to quibbling blobs of tear-strained jelly on the subject of converting me to philosophy wrote books that you now read. So if I can do it to them, I can do it to you. Glooming,
Yeah.
ominous piano notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But when we don't have to stress this, but so more
Yeah.
thoughts about the book, about a
Yeah.
book.
More thoughts about the book. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I sort of started working on two projects, which is never a good idea. I needed to decide to focus on one of them for a while. And one of them, there were two things that you said to me in our last conversation that stuck out to me. One of them was that there was some content on my channel that I could translate into a book with actual real additions, and that people might want the book because it's a different kind of object and things like this. And so I started writing a little bit about that and started writing there. I looked through my newsletter where I write some stuff that's very similar in tone, and realized there were similar themes cropping up in some places. So I've written a little bit about that, and I'm trying to outline what that book could look like. I'm not going to do the worst thing in the world, which is try to write the introduction first. I'm going to write some of those meaty chapters later. And I've realized now, if I want to push forward on that book, probably all I need to do is write one or two substantive chapters, an outline for the rest of it, and then just start talking to agents, because I could probably
and then pitch it.
start having that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's all you need. Working material and a précis of the rest, and you can start to.
Yeah.
Good Lord, what is that creature? It's the size of a capybara.
Oh yeah, that is my very large cat. That one that I've paid a lot of money to keep alive lately. Yeah.
Okay.
He's
a horrifying question of why.
He's actually very sweet and gentle, but he is a very large cat. Yeah.
Sweet and gentle might have cut the mustard when I didn't have a visual size comparison of him and the piano. Now that I do, I'm not going to believe the sweet and gentle part.
You have to understand, Steve. I'm going to give you some real YouTube speak for a second. We're shooting with a 24 millimeter lens on a full frame sensor, wide depth, big, nice wide view. And the depth, once you get past me, is very strange. So
I would actually say that statement is true about philosophy too. The depth, once you get past you, is very strange. That's absolutely true of the waters in which you tread.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Nevertheless, I mean, you said that you don't want to do two things at one time. Does that mean that you subscribe to the idea that a lot of people shout it in the wilderness in the 21st century? There's no way you're going to get traction with it. But a lot of people have started to say there's no such thing as multitasking. You're only doing many
I don't.
poorly. Do you not subscribe to that?
I don't totally believe that. In fact, I think that because I started working on two book projects, or sort of outlining them slightly, what I realized is that one of them has to be your primary focus, and the other one you're going to have ideas about it. You just need a place to like store them. And in the most kind of trite booktube kind of thing possible, I have like an actual physical wooden box full of note cards, so I just put ideas there and then I sort through them later, which is actually proven very useful for me. But the idea is that the ideas will go there and they will be found later, but the main project needs to kind of take precedence. Yeah.
And you originally had a plastic box, and then you had a knock on the door, and when you opened it, it was Ryan Holiday, and he said, "No, if you're a Stoic,
It has to be
a wooden box.
it has to be wood. It has to be wood.
Didn't want to offend.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So the second one is actually going back to this aspiration I've had for a long time to write a novel. And you said something last time, which was like, sometimes those novels that are just like that you've been working on for a very long time but don't seem to work out, maybe that's just a sign that they're not novels that should be written. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to finally like let go of that old novel for a little while. I'm going to let go of it for a time and just like forget about that idea. And then I had this other idea come to me that I like a lot more, actually, that seems new and exciting and fresh. And I've been able to actually outline the book in a way that I've really struggled to do with like my old project. And so I actually just feel better about what I'm writing. And I would like to pursue that at some point. The thing is, though, if people are going to buy a book from me because of who I am or how they know me, they're not looking to read a science fiction book, which is what this would be.
It's an important thing that bigger channels on BookTube, for instance, have to keep in mind, that if you're pitching yourself to an agent or a publisher as having an audience, that audience is there for one thing. They're not there for your manual of macrame or whatever. They won't care about.
Exactly.
There are a lot of videos you've made on your channel that are sort of the outlines of what could be a discussion.
Yes.
You don't often give the discussion, or not all of it.
Exactly. So I think a lot of the stuff that I've tried to talk about a little bit in on my videos, I could think of like 5 or 6 of them that put together actually form about 2 chapters worth of material that would just need to be substantially reworked. The stuff about journaling, like the 2 videos about like mainly the how to journal like a philosopher, a video made almost as if I was trying to upset you, and then a video on writing by hand and hating computers, a video also titled as if I were trying to upset you, just like a few of these videos I think could form the basis of stuff. And also on my newsletter, I've explored some of those ideas a little bit more as well, but I yet to give them the sort of 5,000 word treatment or something.
And
no,
that brings
not
up
fully.
the subject of work habits. You mentioned last time that when your schedule starts to get crowded, the first thing to fall off it is writing, and that you don't like that.
Yeah. I've recently tried to be a little bit more intentional about just setting aside that writing time. Just, I think, frankly, you just probably just need to schedule things if you really want them to be done. At least I found it. So I just say,
it amazes me
these are
when
the
people say, the reason I get reading done is because I make time for reading. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong with writing. I always want to say, wow, you just said it. You just said
it. Exactly. So I am now shooting for. Now I'll say this, actually, once I sit down to write, writing a lot has never been my problem. Usually it's and so I can write 1,000 words in an hour or something like this, which is not great words. They aren't good. They have to be substantially reworked, but I am capable of being quite productive in my writing time in that hour or something.
Yeah.
So if I can do an hour a day,
it doesn't matter whether or not they're great words. You can't edit a thought. It has
exactly.
You have to generate material first. Then without that, there's nothing to talk about.
So what I'm trying to do is get that hour of writing where I get about 1,000 words written every weekday, and then I'm going to try to turn the weekends into sort of my editing time, where I go back and try to see there, and that gives me about 5,000 words to work with every Saturday. And if I could do that, I can have the first draft of a book done in 3 months or something.
That will add up. That will definitely add up, provided you don't stall out or get bored or go to another subject. But there's the other question that might come up with an uncharitable viewer would be, I mean, the book that you're describing is going to be basically a takeoff of a lot of the content of your channel.
Hmm.
So life instructions,
Hmm.
that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that automatically is, in a certain segment of the population, certain viewers, is going to raise the question of, you're going to get people who are going to look at that and say, well, aren't you a muling punk? aren't you someone who doesn't have any life experiences? So what are you doing giving advice? I've
yeah.
seen comments to that effect on innumerable videos from Ryan Holiday. People saying,
Hmm.
where do you get off? There's a reason. One person on a comment on his channel years ago said, there's a reason why the stereotypical view of a philosopher is an old bearded man,
Yeah.
because this has to come from experience, not just insight.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's
So
obviously not true, right? I mean, one of the reasons why your channel is so successful is you, regardless of your age.
yeah. So yeah. Actually, Aristotle says the same thing in the Nicomachean Ethics, by the way. He says ethics is for the old people to decide, to talk about, because young people don't know enough. And I found that to not be totally true. You can teach ethics to 19-year-olds. They still have a lot to learn, but they can start doing it, and that part's important. I think the one thing is that the way I try to approach these topics is I usually like to ground what I say in examples and stories that people can hear, that can relate to, so they can see why I'm talking about something in this particular way. I also probably commit the fallacy of appealing to authority quite often, where I am saying, oh, but look, you could also learn, if you don't trust me, there's another guy with an even bigger beard and it's whiter than mine.
You think there's a chance that you do that? Okay,
Yeah,
that's big
yeah,
of you.
yeah.
There's just a chance that philosophy does a
So,
lot of appealing to
yeah, yeah,
authority. Oh, okay.
yes.
I
So
haven't thought of
I
that.
I can do some of that. Yeah, I can do some of that, and also though my main response to that kind of criticism just goes, I'm trying to say what I think is true. I'm trying to give you good reasons for what I believe, and I'm going to ask that you assess it on its merits. And if you find it wanting, you think that I haven't done a good job, rake me over the coals on it. Right? Go on the write a review. Well, I'd love if you write a review, because as you said in another video, the reviews are actually what matters to people. So
No,
getting
more than
attention to your
anything.
book is what matters.
More than anything.
Yes, but
Booktubers with
write the
100,000,
review.
500,000 subscribers, they think I'm not going to need any of that, and they do. They very
Yeah.
much do. Or the book will
So
disappear without a single ripple.
so exactly. So write the review, or write the angry comment where you actually explain why I got it wrong, and I'll say, fine, fair play, let's talk about it. In fact, this kind of goes to my commenting policy on my channel. I very rarely hide or block viewers on my comment section. The only ones I do are people who have descended into pure personal insult. If they just write "you're stupid," or they write some kind of expletive,
Right.
or if they're just mouthing on, typically people like to drag some politics into my channel because I think that I seem too politically ambiguous to people. And I get accused from many different directions about things, and I find that to be tiresome. But if you just say, like, this list is bad and here's why, like the guy who said that I didn't make engaging comment, and then I mentioned the 7 authors I should have been reading instead, I left his comment up, like because he put some thought into it. And
Yeah.
so in the same way, if someone doesn't like my book and they think they can criticize it for this, and they want to hear my thoughts about their criticism, I would say, did you read it and did you engage with it at all to write about it? Or did you just dismiss it as like a YouTuber in his 30s wrote a book, right? Or something like that.
I mean, the comment section of your videos is not the place for personal insults,
Yeah.
especially when you have Zoom chats for that. you know where to go for your personal insults. You're not going to take it from a piker.
Exactly.
But that brought up a point for me, and I'm noticing the clock that we're running out of time, and that's distracting me. What was it? It was about work habits. Oh my. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm fascinated at the idea of the relationship between these two things, because the book that you're describing is an organic outgrowth of your channel. It can't help not be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet it's going to want to draw lifeblood. from your channel, or is it not? Or is what
No,
you're saying that you are
it might.
compartmentalizing them?
It might actually. And in fact, I was talking to a mentor of mine from my graduate school days who has written more popular philosophy books as well. So, and he just said, one thing you're going to need to start doing is saying, is this a video or is this a chapter? You're going to need to eventually start deciding that. And I think he's right that at least some of that stuff will have to be chapters instead of videos. And then I can produce other videos. I typically do not want for video ideas. I can come up with enough video ideas if I need to. If I have to make another book list, I'll make another book list. But
your book lists are interesting. They're fun.
Well, I do think they are fun, yeah, and I do try to put a spin on those book lists.
The last thing you want is a slate of video ideas for the upcoming week that doesn't excite you.
That's true. That part's true. I can usually come up with at least one or two that I think are exciting enough. I came up with one today that I'll probably release. I'll probably schedule for sometime in June when I should be out on leave taking care of my wife and newborn when that happens, because she's due in a week. So I will schedule it there, and I think it's just fun. It's just a fun video to make. And when you come up with a fun video and you realize you could film it in a day and you could, start editing it in 2 days or something like this, you get to the blood pumping a little bit. You get excited, and so you want to go just make it.
But I'm fascinated to hear that little Steve or Stevina is doing only a week.
Yes, it's doing a week, doing exactly 7 days. So we're looking forward to that. Theodore is the name. Theodore. So
many is the YouTube philosophy bro who envies you. They'd love to be able to look down on their newborn because of how much COD philosophy flapdoodle fodder it would give them. But unfortunately, they're incels. So,
yes,
so it's not an option.
I also have a rule where I'm just I've mentioned that I'm having a kid on YouTube before. I've mentioned that I'm married, but my wife doesn't have any interest in being on YouTube, and my kid will never be on YouTube. Like, I'm not going to turn into like 10 the philosophy of being a dad and then show a lot of footage of my baby or something like this, because
it must give you,
he deserves to decide if he wants to be on the internet.
I don't have any children that I haven't exposed at the dump. But to have a child and give them an Instagram account, have you seen people that?
Yeah.
There are people, there are health and beauty influencers who give their little babies Instagram accounts. These kids are online all the time without any kind of permission on their own part. They have no idea.
If he wants to throw away all of his anonymity and privacy, that's his choice to make when he's a little bit older.
Some of these people are telling some of the first thing that their little kid hears and understands when they get to 2 or 3 and they can understand what you're saying. Some of the first things they hear from their parents are about their view counts.
Yeah.
How horrible that must be. I mean,
turn this way. Show me your good side.
I know, right from the start. That's just.
Yeah. I don't want any part of that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I might be accused of hypocrisy here, but Frida loves being the center of attention. she loves it no matter what.
Yeah,
she doesn't know what view counts are, but she would be all over people if they came over here. So it's like she were a shy dog. Even though a dog doesn't understand the technology, if she were a shy dog, I would probably think twice.
Yeah,
because it would just feel wrong.
Yeah.
But this is so. I don't want to run out of time while we're in mid sentence.
I can do a part 2 if you want. We have
lots of other topics to discuss.
Yeah,
I could tear apart your whole ethos. For instance, you dangled that word in front of me like a flag in front of a pawing bull, but then you said, "Oh, that probably needs a video of its own." And also writing. Oh my God, we could talk forever about writing.
I would love to talk about writing with you. That's on my mind.
In the time that we have left, you're talking about, okay, a front burner book. It's now on your mind. It's now an active thing on your mind. I can tell. I can see the tone in it anyway. Yeah. And then a back burner book that has a stained grain wooden box from the 2nd century that you're putting things in for that second book.
Yeah.
Are these two the first really concerted things? Works of prose, works of writing that you've done?
Well, I wrote a dissertation.
I think we can both agree those don't count.
But if you don't count that,
look at them on the back of cereal boxes.
Yeah. If no, then these would be the first sustained things. I mean, I've tried to write books before. I've written novels in the sense of like incomplete drafts and things, or mostly complete drafts that I've decided were unworkable or something. But this is the first of the big writing.
So you'll be polling your viewers for beta readers, things like that.
a few people. I've mostly reached out to people who support me on Patreon because I actually talked to some of them or something like this, and they seem more interested in some of the material that I would be exploring more.
That could be helpful.
Exactly. So
I don't want to get cut off in mid-word. There's something about your channel that seems so sacrilegious for you to be cut off in mid-sentence. I do it all the time. Old man yells at clouds, but I don't like that to happen to you. So let's wrap this up now and just do another one.
Okay. Sounds good.
After the birth.
Okay, let's do it after the birth. Yes. All right. Sounds great. Take care, Steve.
So long. Thank you very much.